First Amendment gives Americans 5 basic freedoms: freedom of speech, press, petition, assembly, and religion. While all 5 are important, perhaps freedom of speech is talked about the most. Free speech is the cornerstone of our democracy. Although what you say can have consequences, like losing friends or a job, it gives Americans the right to express opinions without government censorship or control. And more importantly, you can't go to jail for expressing your opinion. It not only protects the speech that people like, but speech that people don't. Because when it comes to free speech, either everyone is protected or no one is at all. It allows citizens to support political movements and candidates. It gives people the power to call out government corruption and abuse. And most importantly, it empowers people to give unpopular opinions. The civil rights movement is a perfect example of free speech in action. During the 1950s and 60s, civil rights activists such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were able to use free speech as a tool to force change within society. By exercising their voice, civil rights activists were able to outlaw racial discrimination that plagued the nation. But in today's politically charged climate, some people believe the government should restrict certain speech.
Will American citizens be monitored?
No.
Guarantee that?
Well, so what we do, we in the Department of Homeland Security don't monitor American citizens.
You don't, but will this board change that?
No. The board does not have any operational authority or capability.
Let me ask you about this. Are you aware of any communications regarding content moderation with Twitter staff and the United States government in your time at the company?
I'm familiar of the conversations that happen through Department of Homeland Security, the traffic light protocol, where there are messages sent out to organizations about threats that maybe the FBI or other organizations had insight into.
So earlier this year, documents that we obtained from a different whistleblower at the Department of Homeland Security exposed that the disinformation board that the Department of Homeland Security set up, that first on the disinformation board's list of companies to meet with was Twitter. And they had an extensive memo, which by the way is public information now. We've released it. You can go and look at it. But they had a memo prepared with notes for this meeting with Twitter, talking about cooperation in content moderation and frankly in monitoring Americans' speech. And now we know that thousands of Twitter employees have access to that. This was all in these documents. I guess my question to you is, and I know you weren't in those meetings, but why do you suppose that the disinformation board had Twitter first on the list of entities to come to talk about coordinating, monitoring American speech?
In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously, this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Go on.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media?
Yeah.
Really? What sort of things get you
Well,
arrested?
one example I give in my show is there was a young woman from Liverpool called Chelsea Russell, and people can look this up. Her friend was killed in a car crash, a 19-year-old woman. And she posted the lyrics of his favorite song on her Instagram, the lyrics. And there was a rap song, so the lyrics contained several instances of the N-word. Okay? She was arrested, prosecuted, found guilty, given 500 hours of community service and a fine, tagged, and for a year she was under 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. curfew.
My goodness.
In Britain.
In Britain?
In 2018.
Former University of Toronto professor and clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson is receiving heat from the College of Psychologists of Ontario. The regulatory body has ordered Peterson to undergo a media training program after they received complaints over his controversial tweets. Peterson has refused to do so. He says he could face a disciplinary hearing and possibly lose his clinical license. All this has raised questions around freedom of expression. I'd like to bring in James Turk. He is the director of the Center for Free Expression at Toronto Metropolitan University. James, thanks for taking the time today.
My pleasure, Andrew.
So what do you think of this regulatory body ordering Peterson to take this media training program?
I'm quite troubled by the actions of the College of Psychologists. Now, I'm someone who really dislikes Jordan Peterson's positions on most things. So it's not a defense of Peterson, but it's, I think, really inappropriate overreach by the college to want to be able to censor political expression by someone.
Now, they concluded that he does pose moderate risks to the public, specifically around his refusal to use they, them pronouns.
So, good morning. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, but I laughed when I was told that I had to refer to people as they. I mean, I did the same thing when Prince, remember him? He wanted to be referred to as the artist formerly known as, and he became a symbol. Now, I think this might have been the beginning of all the nonsense that's begun and that is ensuing. So now, by my latest count, courtesy of LGBTQ+, there are 76 genders, which include androgyne, by gender, butch, cisgender, gender expansive, gender fluid, gender outlaw. I mean, OK, let's take a look at androgyne. Apparently, some androgynes are comfortable with their body, as is, but some experience gender dysphoria and may wish to undergo a physical transition. The degree of physical transition can vary, blah, 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 blah. I want to stop. And just to confuse you further, here is a list of gender pronouns courtesy of the LGBTQ+ Resource Centre, which include ex-herself, which is what I fancy being called, per, pers, per-self. I mean, look at that list. You're only going to make a mistake, aren't you? It's just, have we gone mad?
Mm.